Good morning. So, today I am going to talk about the pain, sensation of pain. So, in this topic, you have to learn about the physiology of pain. So, what are the different types of pain, how it is carried, okay, how this sensation is carried to the central nervous system, and then so what are all the different aspects, that is what is the analgesic system which is present in the body, and some applied aspects. So all these things we'll learn in this session. So first, pain. About pain, so it is almost all the organs, ailments of the body, they cause pain. So for a clinician, he should know what are all the different types of pain, and then the ability to diagnose the different diseases. It depends upon the different it depends on the different qualities of the pain. So that's why we should know the different qualities of the pain and different types of the pain actually is a protective mechanism. So for example, if a person sits on the ischia for a longer time, so he feels pain. So unconscious without conscious, that is subconsciously, he will move, okay, so he will move to shift that weight. So this pain is due to the ischemia of the organ, that is because of the pressure in the blood vessels. So when a person sits, the weight which compresses the blood vessels, so the ischemia to the organs, so that causes pain. So immediately what he will do, he will subconsciously move so that he will lift the weight, and then the pain subsides. If there is no pain, means what will happen, he will be continuously sitting and there will be ischemia of the organ, and there may be tissue desquamation. So tissue total breakdown of the tissue. So that's why the pain is a protective mechanism. So Sherrington defined pain as the psychical adjunct of an imperative protective reflex. That is, pain is a sensation which draws attention of the individual as a whole. So it also can be described as unpleasant sensory and emotional experience. So as we all know, the receptors, okay, for the pain is always the free nerve endings. So free nerve endings are the receptors for the pain. And these receptors are mainly stimulated by mechanical, thermal and chemical stimulation. So before going to this, first I will tell about the different types of pain. That is the fast pain and the slow pain. So fast pain means within milliseconds, that is 0.1 second, it starts within about 0.1 second, whereas the slow pain means it always starts after 1 second and it will be there for over many seconds or maybe over many minutes. So that is called slow pain. Fast pain is usually you can feel that the fast pain usually occurs when there is a cut, okay, when there is a cut by the knife, or when there is a needle is stuck, or electrical pain, electrical shock. So all these causes the fast pain, whereas slow pain usually causes by the deep organs of the body. It may occur in the skin also, but the slow pain is usually seen in the deep organs of the body. Fast pain is also called the acute pain, sharp pain, prickling pain, electrical pain, whereas the slow pain is also called as the throbbing pain, aching pain, nauseous pain, and slow burning pain. So this is the slow pain. So these so now we'll go to the first slide, so where it is explained that the stimulation for the pain is mechanical, thermal, and chemical stimulation. So the fast pain is usually occurs by mechanical and thermal stimulation, whereas the slow pain can be caused by all these three: mechanical, thermal, and chemical stimulation. So for the chemical stimulation, so certain chemicals are responsible for the stimulation of pain. So these are bradykinin, it's mentioned in this: bradykinin, histamine, potassium ions, proteolytic enzymes, prostaglandins, and substance P. So these are not actually excite the pain pathway, but the chemical substances, they actually enhances the sensitivity of pain endings. These chemical substances, that is prostaglandin and substance P, they enhance the sensitivity of pain endings but do not directly excite them. So these are the pain stimulators, chemical stimulators. So one important property of the receptors, that is the free nerve endings which carries the pain stimulation, that is the non-adapting nature of the receptors. So in contrast to so many sensory receptors, the pain receptors adapt very little and sometimes not at all. So under some conditions, so excitation of pain fibers becomes progressively greater, especially for the slow aching pains. So this increase in sensitivity of the pain receptors is called hyperalgesia. So this is the non-adapting nature of the pain receptors. And then so this is about the pain receptors, and the rate of tissue damage, that is a stimulus for pain. So the intensity of pain is closely correlated with the rate of tissue damage. If the tissue damage is more, the pain will be more. And then we should know that the pain pathways are the neospinothalamic tract and the paleospinothalamic tract. So this, even though all the pain receptors are free nerve endings, so these endings use the separate pathways for transmitting the pain signals to the sensory nervous system. That is the fast sharp pain pathway and then the slow pain pathway. That means for the fast pain a separate pathway is there, and for the slow pain a separate pathway. So before going to the pathways, we'll see a few things about the superficial versus the deep pain. So superficial pain, it involves the skin and subcutaneous tissues, and then the deep pain involves mainly the deeper structures, that is the muscles and hollow viscera. It is sharp. The superficial pain is sharp, whereas the deep pain is dull. And the superficial pain is conducted along the myelinated A delta fibers, whereas the deep pain is carried by the C fibers. So the superficial pain, it do not radiate, whereas this deep pain is local as well as radiates to the other side. So these are the difference between the superficial pain and the deep pain. So this is the one more classification of the, that means the pain is also classified as superficial and deep pain. Usually superficial is fast pain and the deep pain is slow pain. Now we'll see the pathway, that is the how the pain sensation is carried. So the pain sensation is carried by the two pathways I mentioned, that is the neospinothalamic tract and the paleospinothalamic tract. So the fast pain, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so neospinothalamic tract. One second. Okay, so the fast sharp pain signals are elicited by, I mentioned that already, by mechanical or thermal stimulus, and this is because mainly in the peripheral nerves, the stimulus mainly comes from the peripheral nerves to the spinal cord by A delta fibers. So this is myelinated fibers, and then the velocity of these fibers is velocities between 6 and 30 meter per second, whereas the slow pain is elicited mostly by the chemical stimuli. So here this is transmitted to the spinal cord by the C fibers, that is at the velocity of around between 0.5 to 2 meter per second. So the slow pain are by the C fibers, whereas the fast pain are by A delta fibers, and A delta fibers are myelinated and C fibers are not myelinated. That's why the velocity of conduction is more in A delta fibers. And the synaptic neurotransmitter released at primary afferent ending in A delta fibers is glutamic acid, whereas C fibers is substance P. And A delta fibers are usually less in number as compared to the C group of fibers. And then the A delta fibers conduct impulses only in response to a noxious stimulus, whereas C fibers, they respond to thermal, chemical and as well as mechanical stimulation. So A delta fibers are more sensitive to electrical stimulation, whereas C fibers are less sensitive to electrical stimulation. So these are few differences between the A delta fibers and the C fibers. Okay, we'll go to the next, that is the neospinothalamic tract. These are A delta fibers. So we'll see about the neospinothalamic tract. So they transmit mainly mechanical and acute thermal pain. So they terminate mainly in the lamina 1 of the dorsal horn of the spinal cord, and they excite the second order neurons of the spinothalamic tract, and these they run and they cross immediately to the opposite side through the anterior commissure and then upward, okay, and then turn upward, passing to the brain in the anterolateral columns. So these enters the dorsal horn of the spinal cord and ends in the lamina 1 layer of the dorsal horn, and then from there the second order neuron starts, and then they immediately cross to the opposite side and enters the anterior commissure and then runs upwards in the anterolateral column of the spinal cord, and then from there they will see where it will terminate. So the few fibers of the neospinothalamic tract terminate in the reticular areas of the brain stem, but most of them pass to the thalamus without interruption, so terminating in the ventrobasal complex along with the dorsal medial lemniscal tract. So a few fibers also terminate in the posterior nuclear group of the thalamus. So from here, from these thalamic areas, the signals are transmitted to the basal area, that is the somatosensory cortex. So that is about the neospinothalamic tract. So we'll see this is the neurotransmitter released here is glutamic acid or glutamate. So we'll see the tract. Okay, so this is the diagram showing the tract. So here the first pain, that is the neospinothalamic tract, they usually the first pain fibers, so you can see here the ventrobasal complex and the posterior nuclear group of the thalamus, they are terminating in the thalamus, and then they are from the thalamus the third order neurons ends in the somatosensory area. So this have the better localization compared to the C fibers. This have the better localization. So next we'll see the paleospinothalamic tract. So paleospinothalamic tract is for the slow pain, and this is carried by the C fibers. So this ends in the lamina 2 and 3 of the spinal cord. So this is older pathway, older system, and so enters in the lamina 2 and 3 of the dorsal horn. So from the free nerve endings, the neurons enters the spinal cord and ends in the lamina 2 and 3 of the spinal cord. So from here, so it crosses to the opposite side and then enters the anterior commissure and then runs in the anterolateral pathway. Okay, so then it's having the projection. Okay, the slow pain not only ends in the thalamus, the second order neurons, but it also projects on the reticular system, and then the tectal areas, and the in the thalamus as well. This is having uh, the projections, that is the second order neurons, it's having the projections on the intralaminar nuclei as well. So next, after runs in the anterolateral column. So only what will happen, we'll see. That is 1/10 to 1/4 of the fibers all the way to the thalamus. It runs to the thalamus. 1/10 to the 1/4 will run to the thalamus, and then the fibers runs to the reticular nuclei, the tectal area, and the periaqueductal gray region. Sorry. So these are the projections from the second order neurons. Then these lower regions of the brain appear to be important for feeling the suffering types of pain. So because animals whose brains have been sectioned above the mesencephalon to block pain signals from reaching the cerebrum still evince under undeniable evidence of suffering when any part of the body is traumatized. So from the brain stem pain areas, multiple short fiber neurons relay the pain signals into the intralaminar and the ventrolateral nuclei of the thalamus. I already mentioned this. And then from here, so one thing we should know, that very poor capability of the nervous system to localize precisely the source of pain transmitted in the slow chronic pathway. Mainly the neospinothalamic tract is better localized. So this is about the pathways, and we have to see later that here the main neurotransmitter released are substance P and glutamate. So poor localization, and this is responsible for the arousal, because the reticular system which is present is mainly meant for the arousal. So the projections from the slower these tracts which carries the slow pain, so they have projections on the reticular activating system. So this is the responsible for the arousal. So when there is pain, for example, if you have pain, it's difficult for you to sleep. So that is because of this pathway, because of the projections on the reticular activating system. So then from here, the projections to the cingulate gyrus. So this is the diagram of both the tracts. Okay, after this, you should know that in our body, so we have the natural analgesic system. That is, there is a pathway, there is the system which reduces the pain. So this system is called the endogenous analgesic system. So the degree to which a person reacts to pain varies tremendously, and this results partly from a capability of the brain itself to suppress the signals to the nervous system by activating a pain control system that is called as the analgesia system. So in this system, you should know the three important parts, that is periaqueductal, gray and periventricular areas of the mesencephalon, and then the raphe magnus and the nucleus reticularis para gigantocellularis. So we'll see the diagram. Okay, so this is the diagram which shows the periventricular nuclei, the periaqueductal gray matter, so and then the Raphe Magnus nucleus, and then the nucleus reticularis peri gigantocellularis. So here the first component, that is the periaqueductal and periventricular areas of the mesencephalon and upper pons. So this is the area that surround the aqueduct of Sylvius and portions of the third and fourth ventricular. So the surrounding area we call it as the periaqueduct. The aqueduct of Sylvius surrounding area we call it as periaqueduct, and the ventriculars periventricular areas. So from here the neurons arises and these send signals to the Raphe Magnus nucleus. So a thin midline nucleus which is present in the lower pons, and also the fibers are also they supplies to the upper medulla, and the nucleus reticularis para gigantocellularis located in the medulla. So from these nuclei the second order neuron signals starts. You can see in the diagram. So it starts and the second order neurons transmitted down the dorsolateral columns in the spinal cord to a pain inhibitory complex located in the dorsal horns of the spinal cord. So at this point the analgesic signals can block the pain before it is relayed to the brain. That is, the periaqueductal and the periventricular areas, the neurons arises from here and they send signals to the Raphe Magnus nucleus. So a nucleus which is present in the lower pons and the medulla, and then the neurons are also supplies to the nucleus reticularis para gigantocellularis. So from here the second order neurons starts and there ends in the spinal cord, in the dorsolateral column in the spinal cord. So transmitted down the dorsolateral column in the spinal cord, and it ends in the pain inhibitory complex located in the dorsal horns of the spinal cord. So this pathway is meant for the pain suppression. So the electrical stimulation either in the periaqueductal area or in the Raphe Magnus nucleus, so they stimulate the areas at still higher levels of the brain that excite the periaqueductal gray area and suppresses the pain. So the transmitter substances involved in the analgesia system are enkephalin and serotonin. So many nerve fibers derived from the periventricular nuclei and from the periaqueductal gray area, they secrete enkephalins. So this is about the endogenous analgesic system. You should know about the nucleus, that is the periaqueductal areas and the periventricular areas. So the fibers arises and they ends in the, that means the neurons arises from these areas, ends in the Raphe Magnus nucleus and the nucleus reticularis para gigantocellularis. So from here the second order neurons starts, so they transmitted down the dorsolateral columns in the spinal cord to a pain inhibitory complex which is present in the dorsal horns of the spinal cord. So this pathway is responsible for the pain suppression. So the fibers originating in this area, they send signals to the dorsal horns of the spinal cord to secrete serotonin. So the serotonin that causes the local cord neurons to secrete enkephalin as well. So the enkephalin is believed to cause both presynaptic and postsynaptic inhibition. Okay, of inhibition of incoming type C and type A delta pain fibers where they synapse in the dorsal horns of the spinal cord. So that is about the pain suppression system. And then we should know that the brain's opiate system, that is endorphins and enkephalins as well. So one second. So you can see in this diagram as well the pain inhibitory. So the pain inhibitory complex, that is the analgesic pathway, natural analgesic pathway. So this I already mentioned. Okay, so brain's opiate system, that is it was discovered that when morphine is administered into the periventricular nucleus and also to the periaqueductal, they cause an extreme degree of analgesia. So previously it was discovered that when morphine is injected, it was causing analgesia. So it has been found that morphine like agents, they called as opiates, also acts at many other points in the analgesia system, so including the dorsal horn of the spinal cord. So they causes the analgesia. So it's called brain's opiate system, because most drugs that alter excitability of neurons do so by acting on the synaptic receptors. It was assumed that the morphine receptors of the analgesia system must be the receptors for some morphine-like neurotransmitter. So therefore an extensive research was undertaken, and about a dozen opiate-like substances are identified, and these are all breakdown products of the three large protein molecules called pro-opiomelanocortin, pro-enkephalin, and pro-dynorphin. So this is about the brain's opiate system. Among the important opiates, so these are the main thing: beta endorphin, metenkephalin, dynorphin, and leuenkephalin. So the two enkephalins which are found in the brainstem and spinal cord, and beta endorphin is present in both the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. Dynorphin is found mainly in the in much lower quantities. So activation of the analgesia system by this method is it inactivates the pain pathways. It can almost totally suppress many pain signals entering through the peripheral nerves. So this is how it acts by suppressing the pain stimulation. And we also should know that the inhibition of pain transmission by few things, that is one important thing is about the acupuncture, and then by simultaneous tactile sensory signals. So all these things, the pain will be inhibited, pain transmission will be inhibited. So you should know about the gate control theory as well. So, yeah, this one I was telling clinical application, that is the rubbing the injured area. So, whenever we have seen that whenever there is a pain, whenever if you fall, so immediately uh, we used to rub over the skin. So, when you rub the skin near the painful areas, so that may relieve the pain. That is mainly due to the because of the inhibition of pain transmission by simultaneous tactile sensory signals. So was the discovery that another important event in the this pain control was the discovery that stimulation of large type A A beta sensory fibers from peripheral tactile receptors can depress the transmission of pain signals from the same body area. So that's why it explains why rubbing the skin near the painful areas is often effective in relieving the pain. That is, if you stimulate the other sensory fibers, so that can depress the transmission of the pain signals from the same body area. And then acupuncture, so that is one of the method which can reduce the pain transmission, and also electrical stimulation. So these are all the different modes of inhibition of pain transmission. So deep pain, I mentioned that it's dull aching, poor localization, it's usually from the deeper organs, visceral pain, and then referred pain. So these two things you should know in this topic. So the remaining we'll discuss in the next class. Remaining few things are there, we'll discuss in the next class. So we'll see about the visceral pain and the referred pain. So visceral pain is usually it's arises from the visceral structures, that is from the hollow viscera, abdominal organs. So it's from the visceral structures, unpleasant, and it's usually associated with nausea and autonomic changes. It will radiates to the other sites. It is particularly unpleasant because of the emotional effects and activation of many visceral afferents activated that initiate nausea, vomiting, and other autonomic effects. That's why it's particularly unpleasant. And you should know about the pathway. So the receptors in the walls of the hollow viscera are specially sensitive to distension of these organs. So such distension causes activation of the C fibers. So afferents from the visceral structure reach the CNS via autonomic nerves. So their cell bodies are located in the dorsal roots and the homologous cranial nerve ganglia. In the CNS, visceral pain sensations travels along the same pathways as somatic pain sensation in the lateral spinothalamic tract. And then the cortex receives is for same, that is the post central gyrus. So visceral pain initiates reflex contraction of skeletal muscle in the abdominal wall and makes it rigid. So it is most marked when inflammation of the viscera involves the peritoneum. So this reflex spasm is called guarding. That is, visceral pain initiates the reflex contraction of the skeletal muscles in the abdominal wall and makes it rigid. So this reflex mechanism is called guarding. So that is about the visceral pain, and the causes for visceral pain is ischemia, chemical stimulus, and spasm of a hollow viscus, and main thing is over distension. So that is about the visceral pain, and you should know about the referred pain as well. So the referred pain is very important. That is, when the sensation of pain is experienced at the site other than the injured or diseased part, it is called the referred pain. That is, when you are feeling the pain somewhere else, whereas the tissue damage is the somewhere else, that is that pain is called the referred pain. So if it seems to spread from the local area to the distant site, it is called radiating pain. So when the sensation of pain is experienced at the site other than the injured or the diseased part is called the referred pain, or when if it seems to spread from the local area to the distant site, then it is called the radiating pain. So in this you should know about the convergence theory and the facilitation theory and the dermatomal rule. So before going that, okay, we'll see that where all you can see the referred pain. So here usually, okay, one example I will give, the heart. Okay, if there is a tissue damage in the heart, so you will feel the pain in the left upper limb. So medial side of the left upper limb, and also in the upper limb, arm, and then forearm, the medial side. Okay, so all these areas you will feel the pain. Okay, you can feel the pain in the jaw as well. So when there is pain, when there is a tissue damage in the heart, for example, if there is a myocardial infarction, so what will happen? The pain, the diseased site is the heart, but you are feeling the pain in the arm, forearm, medial side of the arm, forearm, as well as in the jaw. So this is called the referred pain. Sorry. So to explain this, so we have the different theories, that is the dermatomal theory, facilitation theory, and the convergence theory. So this diagram shows the surface areas of referred pain from different visceral organs. So now we'll see the theories which explains the referred pain. So this one is the dermatomal theory. That is, the pain is usually referred to a structure that developed from the same segment during the embryonic development. So this principle is called the dermatomal theory. That means if the structure is developed from the same segment during the embryonic development, so what will happen? If the pain is present, if the structures, okay, if the two structures, so if the pain is felt, if the pain is arised from one structure, so the other structure also you will see the pain. That because it arises, it develops from the same segment during the embryonic development. So that is called the dermatomal theory. That what I explained now, that is the heart and the arm have the same segmental origin. So that's why you will feel the pain in the arm, okay, medial side of the arm, when there is pain actually present in the heart. Then the convergence theory and the facilitation theory. So the convergence theory, that is the nerves from the visceral structures and the somatic structures to which pain is referred enter the CNS at the same level and converge on the same spinothalamic neurons. Since somatic pain is far more commoner than visceral pain, therefore, when the same afferent pathway is stimulated by signals that originate in the visceral afferent nerves, the signal that reaches the somatosensory cortex is identical and is misinterpreted as having arises within the somatic area. So that is called the convergence theory. Facilitation theory, that is, the afferent impulses from visceral structures produce subliminal fringe effects, so that lower the excitability threshold of spinothalamic neurons which receive afferent fibers from the somatic areas. Therefore, any slight activity in the pathways transmitting pain impulses from somatic regions and which normally would die out within the spinal cord is facilitated and thus reaches the conscious levels. So that is about the two theories, that is the convergence theory and the facilitation theory. So this is about the pain, and few things are there in the pain, so I'll tell it in the next class. Okay, thank you.